Have you ever felt frustrated in a relationship? Wondering why, no matter how much effort you put in, things still don't go the way you expect? Maybe you've been let down by a friend. Maybe you've given your all to a relationship, only to be met with disappointment. Maybe you're tired of feeling like you always have to fix things while others seem to coast through. The truth is, life isn't fair, and it doesn't owe you a thing. That might sound harsh, but accepting this will set you free. And when it comes to relationships, whether romantic, friendships, or family, this truth is even more crucial to understand. Most people expect relationships to be easy, fair, and without struggle. They believe love should always feel good, friendships should always be supportive, and people should naturally understand them. But real relationships don't work that way. The hard truth is that people will disappoint you. They will misunderstand you. There will be conflict, distance, and moments where you feel like giving up. But that's not a sign that something is wrong. That's a sign you're dealing with reality. Relationships, like life, are unpredictable, imperfect, and often challenging. When faced with difficulties, most people crumble. They take things personally, react emotionally, hold grudges, or wait for the other person to change. But that mindset only leads to suffering. Stoicism teaches us a better way. Instead of expecting perfection from others, you take responsibility for your own emotions and reactions. Instead of trying to control people, you focus on controlling yourself. Instead of assuming problems mean the relationship is failing, you see them as opportunities for growth. In this video, we'll break down powerful Stoic principles that will help you navigate relationships with strength, wisdom, and emotional resilience. You'll learn how to handle conflict without losing control, how to stop taking things personally, and how to build relationships based on self-mastery rather than control. If you're ready for brutal honesty and timeless wisdom, let's get started. Most people enter relationships with unrealistic expectations, believing that love should be effortless, that friendships should always feel supportive, and that people should naturally treat them the way they want to be treated. But this mindset sets you up for disappointment. No one is entitled to an easy relationship, just like no one is entitled to an easy life. Too often, people confuse effort with results. They think that if they just love hard enough, communicate openly, or give endlessly, their relationships will be smooth and fulfilling. But that's not how life works. Effort is only part of the equation. Results depend on resilience, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. Take relationships as an example. You can be the most loving, caring partner or friend, but if you don't choose people who reciprocate that energy, your efforts will feel like a waste. You can try to communicate with someone, but if they're not emotionally mature enough to meet you halfway, you'll always feel unheard. You can do everything right, but if the other person is unwilling or incapable of growing with you, the relationship will still suffer. The effort versus results. One of the biggest mistakes we make in relationships is assuming that because we've invested time, energy, and love, we automatically deserve a positive outcome. But effort alone is never enough. Just because you're patient doesn't mean others will change. Just because you're loyal doesn't mean people won't betray you. Just because you forgive doesn't mean the relationship will heal. What matters more than effort? Adaptability. Learning when to push forward and when to let go. Knowing when to improve communication and when to set boundaries. Understanding that not every relationship is meant to last. This was a lesson I learned the hard way. There was a time in my life when I was struggling, both financially and emotionally. I felt like I was doing everything right. I was showing up for people, being reliable and trying to build strong relationships. But no matter what I did, things seemed to fall apart. I kept asking, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to struggle when others seem to have it easy? That's when I realized I was looking at life the wrong way. Life isn't fair. It doesn't operate on a reward system. And just because I was working hard didn't mean I was working smart. Applying this to relationships, this means stop expecting people to give you the same effort you give them. Stop assuming that just because you're kind, you won't face betrayal. Stop believing that because you love someone, they'll automatically love you back in the way you want. Instead, focus on what you can control, your choices, who you invest in, and whether that investment is worth it. Your car. Boundaries. How much you tolerate before walking away. Your self-respect, not begging for love, validation, or attention from those who don't value you. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, put it simply: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Once you stop expecting an easy ride and start adapting, you'll stop feeling powerless in your relationships. You'll stop seeing yourself as a victim of other people's behavior and start focusing on the one thing you can control: yourself. When you're in the middle of relationship struggles, whether it's heartbreak, betrayal, or just a rough patch, it can feel like it will never end. The pain is overwhelming, consuming your thoughts, making you question your self-worth, and convincing you that things will never get better. But here's the truth. You've already survived 100% of your hardest days. Every storm you thought would break you, you got through it. Every painful moment that felt unbearable, you're still standing. The problem isn't just the hardship itself, it's how we perceive it. Most of our suffering isn't caused by events, but by our interpretation of them. How your perception creates suffering. Have you ever met someone who makes every small problem feel like the end of the world? Maybe they went through a breakup, and instead of seeing it as a difficult but temporary phase, they spiral into thoughts like, "I'll never find love again. Maybe I'm just not good enough. What if I never get over this?" Their pain is real, but their suffering is self-inflicted. The breakup didn't destroy them. Their interpretation of it did. The Stoics mastered the art of emotional detachment, not in a cold or heartless way, but in a way that allowed them to see problems objectively, rather than letting emotions cloud their judgment. The Stoic approach to hardship. When you're facing emotional pain, Stoicism teaches you to shift your mindset from "why is this happening to me" to "how can I use this?" Instead of seeing a breakup as rejection, see it as redirection, a chance to find someone who aligns better with you. Instead of seeing a fight with a friend as a disaster, see it as an opportunity to understand their perspective and grow from. Instead of viewing loneliness as punishment, see it as a period of self-discovery and personal development. The truth is, tough times are never permanent, but your resilience is. There was a time when I felt stuck in a toxic relationship. No matter how much effort I put in, things didn't improve. I spent months dwelling on it, overanalyzing every conversation and making myself miserable trying to fix something that was never meant to work. I was suffering not just because the relationship was difficult, but because I refused to accept reality. The day I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What can I learn from this?" everything changed. Instead of focusing on what I lost, I focused on what I gained: strength, clarity, and the ability to walk away from something that was harming me. The moment you take control of your perception, you take control of your suffering. Pain is inevitable. Heartbreak, disappointments, and misunderstandings, they're all part of relationships. But suffering, that's optional. The next time life throws a challenge your way, remember, the storm is temporary, but your strength is permanent. Don't let a moment of hardship define your future. Instead of asking why it's happening, ask how you can use it to grow. Your mind can either be your greatest ally or your worst enemy, and the difference depends on how well you train it. Most people let their thoughts control them instead of the other way around. They allow fear, doubt, and insecurity to dictate their actions in relationships. They assume the worst, jump to conclusions, and let their emotions spiral out of control. But here's the truth. It's not external events that cause suffering, it's how we think about them. Marcus Aurelius put it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This applies to every relationship in your life. When you learn to master your thoughts, you master your emotions. When you master your emotions, you master your relationships. The 3-second rule for mental discipline. Negative thoughts are like weeds. The longer they linger, the deeper they take root. That's why the Stoics practiced catching destructive thoughts before they spiraled into suffering. One technique that works incredibly well is the 3-second rule for mental discipline. Whenever a negative thought arises, catch it within 3 seconds and redirect it. If your mind says, "They didn't text back," maybe they don't care about me. Stop. Instead, tell yourself, there could be 100 reasons they didn't respond. I'll wait for clarity instead of assuming the worst. If your mind says, "I'll never find love again," stop. Instead, remind yourself, this is an emotional reaction, not reality. People find love again all the time. If your mind says, "What if I get hurt?" stop. Instead, ask, "What if this turns out better than I expect?" The key is to intercept the thought before it takes control of you. The longer you entertain a negative idea, the harder it is to break free from it. Your mind is powerful, but only if you control it. Escaping the trap of worst-case thinking. There was a time when I struggled with overwhelming anxiety in relationships. Whenever something felt off, my mind would immediately jump to the worst-case scenario. If a friend was distant, I assumed, they didn't value me. If my partner seemed quiet, I thought I had done something wrong. If someone canceled plans, I took it personally instead of considering other possibilities. I let fear dictate my reality, and as a result, I was constantly stressed and insecure. Then one day I asked myself, how many times have my worst fears actually come true? The answer? Almost never. I was spending so much energy worrying about things that weren't even real. I was choosing fear instead of logic, assumptions instead of patience. That realization was a turning point. Instead of letting my mind run wild, I started practicing rational detachment, training myself to separate emotions from facts. When my mind said, "What if something is wrong?" I replaced it with, "What evidence do I actually have?" When anxiety tried to control me, I countered it with reason, and the result? Stronger relationships, less stress, and a far greater sense of peace. Most people let their minds run unchecked, allowing negative thoughts to create unnecessary pain and suffering in their relationships. But the Stoics knew that discipline over the mind is the key to freedom. So the next time your mind starts spiraling into doubt, fear, or overthinking, catch it within 3 seconds. Redirect it. Don't let it take control. Because in the end, your mind is your most powerful weapon. Learn to use it, and nothing can break you. Most people walk through life believing in an unspoken agreement. If I work hard, if I'm kind, if I endure enough suffering, then life will eventually reward me. But this is one of the biggest myths we tell ourselves. The truth? Life is neutral. It doesn't owe you success, love, happiness, or fairness. The universe doesn't keep a scoreboard. Just because you've struggled doesn't mean you're due for something good. Just because you've given your all in a relationship doesn't mean you'll automatically get the same effort in return. Believing that you are owed something, whether from life, love, or other people, puts you in a passive mindset. It makes you wait instead of act, hope instead of build, and complain instead of adapt. If you want a fulfilling relationship, you have to create it. If you want success, you have to earn it. If you want happiness, you have to cultivate it within yourself, not wait for someone else to give it to you. The entitlement trap. The longer you wait for fairness, the longer you stay stuck. One of the biggest obstacles to personal growth is entitlement. The belief that because you've struggled, sacrificed, or suffered, you deserve a reward. But life doesn't work that way. Just because you've been heartbroken doesn't mean the next person you meet will love you unconditionally. Just because you've given your all to a friendship doesn't mean they will never betray you. Just because you've worked hard doesn't mean success is guaranteed. The longer you expect life to balance the scales for you, The longer you delay taking control of your life, the moment you stop waiting for fairness and start focusing on action, everything changes. Reality. Check. The universe is neutral. The universe doesn't care how much effort you've put in. It doesn't care how much you've suffered. It only responds to actions that produce results. Look at the most successful people, whether in relationships, business, or personal growth. They didn't wait for fairness. They didn't sit around hoping for things to get better. They took control. Instead of expecting love, they became someone worth loving. Instead of expecting happiness, they created it within themselves. Instead of expecting success, they built it, brick by brick. The difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is simple. One group waits. The other group works. The power move. Stop expecting, start executing. The moment you shift from expecting things to creating things, you become unstoppable. Instead of waiting for the right person to come along, become the kind of person who attracts meaningful relationships. Instead of waiting for people to treat you well, set boundaries and walk away from those who don't. Instead of waiting for happiness, find joy in discipline, self-improvement, and growth. You are not a victim of life. You are the architect of your reality. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Stop waiting. Stop expecting. Start building, creating, and taking action. Because the truth is, life owes you nothing. And that's your greatest advantage. It means you're free. Free to make your own path. Free to design your own life. Free to stop waiting and start winning." Pain is an unavoidable part of life. It will find you whether you're ready or not. In relationships, career setbacks, loss, and disappointments, pain is a universal human experience. But suffering? That's a choice. There's a difference between pain and suffering, and understanding this difference will change how you handle adversity. Both Stoicism and Buddhism emphasize this truth. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. The second arrow. Concept, how we make pain. Worse, Buddhism teaches a concept called the second arrow. The first arrow is pain. It's inevitable. It's the heartbreak, the loss, the failure, the betrayal. The second arrow is suffering, and this one is self-inflicted. It's the overthinking, the self-pity, the constant replaying of the event in your mind. The first arrow hurts, but the second arrow? That's what truly destroys you. Let's take an example. Imagine you lose a job or get rejected in a relationship. The initial pain is the first arrow. It stings, it's disappointing, and it's real. But then the second arrow follows. I'm such a failure. What if I never get another opportunity? I'll never be good enough. These thoughts don't come from the situation itself, they come from you. And this second arrow is completely optional. The Stoics understood this deeply. They trained themselves to feel pain without letting it consume them. Instead of reacting emotionally, they asked themselves, what can I learn from this? What's the next step? How can I turn this into something useful? When you stop firing the second arrow at yourself, you free your mind from unnecessary suffering. Practical Stoic approach. Shift from why me to what now? Most people, when faced with pain, ask why me? Why did this happen to me? Why do I always have to struggle? Why is life so unfair? But the Stoic response is different. Instead of asking why me, they ask what now? What can I do to improve this situation? What lesson is hidden in this pain? What actions can I take to move forward? This shift in mindset takes you from victim to strategist, from helpless to powerful. Example, turning a career setback into growth. I once faced a huge career setback. I had worked for months on a project that I believed in, pouring in time, energy, and passion, only to watch it fail spectacularly. At first, I was hit with the first arrow, the disappointment, the frustration. That was real pain. But then I let the second arrow take over. Maybe I'm not good enough. What if I never succeed? Why do things always go wrong for me? For days I sat in self-pity, magnifying my suffering, making the pain last longer than it needed to. Then I caught myself. I asked the Stoic question, what now? Instead of replaying my failure, I analyzed it. What went wrong? What could I do differently next time? Instead of letting rejection define me, I saw it as redirection. Maybe this failure is pushing me toward something better. Instead of feeling powerless, I focused on what was in my control. What's the next step I can take today? That shift in mindset changed everything. Within months, I turned that setback into a better opportunity than I could have imagined. And now, I look back and realize that what felt like a disaster at the time was actually the best thing that could have happened to me. Mastering the mindset of resilience. Pain is part of life. You will experience loss, disappointment, rejection, and failure. That's unavoidable. But you don't have to make it worse than it already is. The next time you face adversity, pause before you fire the second arrow. Don't overthink. Don't spiral into self-pity. Don't magnify the problem. Instead, ask yourself, what? Now? Because in the end, pain is inevitable, but suffering is always a choice. And when you stop choosing suffering, you become unshakable. The brutal truth is this: life doesn't stop just because you're hurting. When you experience heartbreak, betrayal, failure, or loss, it can feel like time should pause to let you process everything. But the world keeps moving. Bills still need to be paid. Responsibilities don't disappear, and people continue living their lives. This might sound harsh, but it's actually empowering. The sooner you accept that healing is something you must create for yourself, not something that happens to you, the faster you take back control. Many people fall into the trap of thinking, I'll start moving forward once I feel better. But that's an illusion. Waiting to feel 100% before acting will only keep you stuck longer. The Stoic truth: healing happens through action, not avoidance. The healing in motion. Mindset: stop waiting, start moving. Most people believe that healing is a passive process, that time alone will make things better. But in reality, healing is active. You don't wake up one day magically over your heartbreak. You heal by putting yourself back out there, learning and growing. You don't suddenly feel motivated after failure. You heal by trying again, adjusting, and refusing to quit. You don't overcome grief by avoiding life. You heal by engaging with it despite the pain. Progress is what creates healing, not the other way around. Instead of waiting to feel ready, you take steps forward despite how you feel, and with each step, you regain power over your life. Learning this the hard way, I remember a time when everything fell apart for me, emotionally, financially, and mentally. It felt like life had hit me from all directions at once. My instinct was to shut down, isolate myself, and wait for things to get better before making any moves. Weeks passed, then months, and I was still stuck. I kept telling myself I'll start moving forward once I feel stronger. But every day I did nothing, I felt weaker. The longer I waited, the heavier my problems felt. Then, one day, I came across a Stoic principle that shifted everything. Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless with a view to some mutual benefit. Think of yourself and where you are now. Marcus Aurelius, that hit me hard. I was wasting time waiting for an external force to fix my pain, when in reality, I was the only one who could move myself forward. So I forced myself to take action. Even when I didn't feel ready, I started small, just waking up earlier, exercising, and reading. I forced myself to engage with friends again, even though I didn't feel social. I focused on what I could control, instead of dwelling on what I lost. Within weeks, I noticed a shift. Not because my pain had magically disappeared, but because I was no longer sitting in it. The lesson? Waiting to heal keeps you stuck. Taking action is what actually heals you. The Stoic way, move forward despite pain. The Stoics never waited for life to be perfect before taking action. They believed that strength is not built in comfort, it's built in adversity. Seneca taught that suffering is part of life, but endurance builds wisdom. Marcus Aurelius faced war, betrayal, and loss, but continued leading Rome with discipline. Epictetus, born into slavery, did not wait for freedom to find peace. He cultivated peace within himself, despite his circumstances. The key lesson? You don't have to wait until the pain stops to keep going. You keep going, and that's how the pain stops controlling you. Strength comes through action, not avoidance. The next time you feel like withdrawing from life because of emotional pain, catch yourself. Instead of waiting to feel ready, take small steps forward. Instead of overthinking what went wrong, focus on what's next. Instead of letting pain define you, let it refine you. The world won't wait for you to heal, but that's not a bad thing. It means you don't have to wait either. Because the truth is, healing isn't about sitting still and hoping to feel better. It's about moving forward even when you're still hurting. And the sooner you start, the sooner you'll realize you were always stronger than you thought. Every challenge you face, every heartbreak, every setback, every disappointment is an opportunity to grow, to become mentally stronger, and to build resilience that will carry you through life's next obstacle. Most people see hardship as something to be avoided, something unfair, something that stops them from moving forward. But the Stoics saw hardship differently. To them, difficulties were not roadblocks, they were the path itself. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that challenge you the most are the things that shape you into the person you need to become. The next time life hits you hard, remember this: you have been through worse before, and you got through it. That means you will get through this too. The heartbreak is teaching you what you truly value in a relationship. The failure is showing you what you need to improve. The struggle is forging the discipline and mindset that will make you unshakable. Stop wishing life was easier. Get stronger. Most people waste time hoping life will become easier. But the truth is, life will not change. You have to. Stop waiting for circumstances to be perfect. Learn to thrive despite imperfection. Stop hoping for people to treat you differently. Control how you respond instead. Stop expecting an easy road. Get stronger so that no road can break you. Pain is inevitable. Challenges are guaranteed. But suffering is a choice, and weakness is optional. You have everything you need to overcome whatever life throws at you. Get stronger. Get wiser. Get unshakable. Because in the end, tough times do not last. But you do. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. What is one challenge you are facing right now? And how can you use it to grow? Remember, life does not owe you anything, but that is your greatest advantage. Because it means you have the power to create your own strength, your own happiness, and your own success. Stay strong, stay disciplined, keep moving forward, and as always, thank you for watching.